Welcome to episode 359 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. Joining me in a moment is Jakub Rymkiewicz. Jakub is the Market Research Manager at the IPC. We're going to talk about the Cross-Border E-Commerce Shopper Survey 2024 that was recently released by the IPC. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about a few of the interesting findings coming out of that report. So, coming up in just a moment, Jakub Rymkiewicz from the IPC. Joining me on the line is Jakub Rymkiewicz. Jakub is the Market Research Manager at the IPC, the International Postal Corporation. Jakub, welcome. We're going to talk about some research that the IPC recently published. It was its annual research, isn't it, into cross-border e-commerce. Can you just give us a little bit of a quick overview? What's the survey? How many people are interviewed? What countries are they from? What kind of information are you really looking for when the IPC conducts this survey?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on, Ian. Yeah, the survey we're talking about is an annual survey, like you said, running now since 2016. And it's a consumer survey where we talk to frequent online shoppers about their most recent international or online purchase. We cover what they bought, where they bought it from, and of course, because we represent the posts, we focus a lot on the delivery experience. We really cover that in detail. And we also collect information about the consumer preferences related to delivery, returns, sustainability, and several other key topics as well. And the fieldwork for the study ran in September 2024, and it included 31,000 individual responses. With that, we covered 37 countries globally, mainly Europe, but also North America, Australia, New Zealand, and a few other markets in Asia, such as China, India, Japan, and South Korea.
Jakub, the big headline out of the report was about the growth in cross-border e-commerce out of China. Can you just give us an idea of what retailers are driving this growth? What are some of the more popular online retailers that are driving this cross-border volume growth?
If the headline had to be just 4 letters, it would be Temu. Because really, the majority of the growth this year into 2024, when we did the survey, was coming from the Chinese retailers and especially from Temu. If you look at the most recent purchase, Temu was in second place just after Amazon. So Temu had a 21% share, just percentage points of Amazon, which is really close. And there was, in the history of this study, we've never seen a retailer having this tiny of a gap between Amazon and the second one. So Temu is there already, but it's important also to remember that it's the most recent purchase that we asked. So there might be a couple of factors at play there, why Temu had such a high share. When we did also ask about the most used retailer, and there we can see that it's still Amazon. It's still Amazon that is most used, that is most trusted overall. It's actually 1/3 of all the respondents that said that they use Amazon most. And Temu was there still in the second place, but more than 10 percentage points behind Amazon. So, and it's also important to say that these giants, so Amazon, Temu, AliExpress, and Shein, they have reached such a high parcel volume, of course, in some geographies, that they can manage supply chains more closely, and they do. They do charter flights, they invest in warehousing. So things are much different to the sending, of items one by one from China as in the olden days. And this development also has an impact on delivery speed. And in 2024, we saw 2 things that never before coincided. And this was China grew its share as the country of origin. And at the same time, the delivery speed on average improved. Improved slightly, but still improved. Whereas usually you would see if China grew their share, then the delivery speed overall would decrease. But this wasn't the case this time. Just to give you a taste of why that might be, this is the data from mid-2024. There were actually 108 Boeing air freighters that leave China every day with merchandise exclusively sold via Temu, Shein, Alibaba, and TikTok.
You mentioned along the way there that the likes of Temu are building out their own logistics networks, and And then that staggering figure you mentioned at the end there, the number of freighters that are flying out of China every day. What does that mean for low value parcels? Because you mentioned how if the delivery in times are improving, it's linked to the higher use of air transport and things like that. So what are you seeing in terms of those low value parcels? What are the most used, I suppose, low value parcel lanes, and what are the most common order values that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In terms of the lanes, the low value lanes, it all starts with China mostly. And in terms of the actual values, we see that, well, at total level, half of all orders were valued at 50 euros or below. So all the products in that order were in total worth less than 50 euros. This was much higher for Temu, AliExpress, or even Vinted, the C2C brand, were mostly operating in Europe. So you're really talking about low value items here, but obviously the difference in delivery and all the supply chains is much different between Vinted and Temu and AliExpress. First of all, it's in Vinted's case, it's C2C, so it's mostly coming from other European shoppers that are they want to get rid of a pair of jeans or a skirt that they no longer want to wear. And Vinted has built this out-of-home network in Europe already, whereas Temu and AliExpress, they don't have this network. Plus, they actually have to get all the goods from Asia first.
What are you seeing then with relation to delivery speeds? You mentioned earlier that the delivery speeds are improving. What are the consumer expectations when it comes to delivery speeds in cross-border e-commerce?
Yeah, sure. Consumers, first of all, they expect faster delivery in general. There's this famous quote by Amazon's Jeff Bezos that whatever happens in the future, we will never have consumers saying, I want slower delivery or I want, more expensive goods. So it's always there, and it's not going to change. So overall, consumers expect faster delivery, but it's not as important in many cases, and it's not always and not for all product categories. Let's say to explain it a little bit more, those product categories that people tend to buy on Temu or Shein or AliExpress will never be products that they need the next day or that they need for next week. So this is almost like an extra item most of the time that they are comfortable to wait for. But if you change product category, or maybe you change go to other segment of consumers, then you might actually have someone who really values the next day or even same day delivery, and they are willing even to pay extra for it. And yeah, the delivery speed for shoppers in our study, it really varied. But obviously, if shoppers are buying from their neighbors, then they usually have the fastest delivery speeds. So, for example, if you live in Ireland, you have a delivery normally in 2 or 3 days from the UK, or those in Belgium, that you can even have a delivery in 1 or 2 days and then the actual product comes from Germany, Netherlands, France. And the countries where they're buying from further afield, especially those buying from China, obviously, you do find delivery can often still take 10 days or more. And especially this is especially true for consumers in Eastern Europe, where they tend to experience the longest delivery times. And fast delivery, we have to remember that it was still less important than clear information about delivery fees or trust in the delivery company. So there are, in the survey that we did, we actually see that fast delivery is important, but not as important as many other elements.
Just, you mentioned there certainty of cost, so the delivery and any customs charges and things like that. So that's a high priority for consumers, is it?
First of all, in our study, we saw that the customs payment peak already happened. We see less people are paying customs now, except for in specific markets such as Iceland, for example, for obvious reasons. And what is also true for customs, and this is especially important to carriers, that the faster the shopper knows about the customs fees that they have to pay him, the better. So the satisfaction actually increases the faster the shopper is notified.
We want to avoid What's what they call a doorstep surprise, don't we? Now, let's move on to delivery preferences. This is something we talk about all the time when it comes to domestic deliveries, and I think it'll be interesting to talk about what's happening with regard to delivery preferences for cross-border e-commerce purchases. So what are you seeing with regard to delivery preferences? And what I really mean by that is, I mean delivery locations, what people want, what customers want. Do they want delivery to the doorstep, to a parcel locker, to a Pudo point, to a neighbor? What are the expectations and the desires from consumers when it comes to the delivery location for their purchases?
First of all, we at IPC don't really look at preferences for domestic and preferences for cross-border e-commerce. We think that preferences for shopping overall is uniform, and it can differ, but not because of the country of origin, but more because of the product type or the product weight, or whether the product needs refrigeration. These are all factors that actually influence the preference. So these are all the elements that we keep at the back of our minds when we are analyzing, because we ask the question, what is your preferred, or what are your preferred locations for delivery? And we get three answers from each shopper, and that's great. But we also need to remember that it might be different if we ask about specific category or specific weight. But coming back to the question, majority of orders in our study were delivered to a doorstep or mailbox with a very high level of satisfaction. So that's that. But parcel locker satisfaction was sort of between the various home options and Pudo, still very, very high. Parcel lockers is actually the most preferred, the location that has the highest satisfaction just after all the home options. So in terms of out of home use and preferences, obviously, we wouldn't. In terms of out of home preferences and use, we need to mention Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, and the Nordics to a lesser extent. But these are all the markets where preferences and use already is very, very much around parcel lockers. So in those, especially Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, the standard delivery now is the locker delivery. And but there's a couple of factors at play here. Consumers demand free delivery. They vote with their shopping baskets in a way, and many of them will do whatever they can to reduce the price of delivery. For the post and other carriers, this adds pressure from e-retailers demanding reliable but affordable delivery.
One last topic I'd like to discuss is returns. So when we're talking about cross-border returns, cross-border purchases, do people even bother returning these purchases, or do they just say, it's not worth it? What does the research show when it comes to cross-border returns?
Yeah, great question. The short answer is they do. Yes, they do, but less so if the item is dirt cheap, for example, or came from very, very far away. But overall, those countries which have above average level of returns also turn to have above average level of orders within the clothing and footwear category. There's a clear link there. And in our study, we saw that 10% of all the shoppers returned the purchase, the full purchase or part of the purchase, and the majority of them returned it for free. 22% had to pay for the return, but this was just a small fee usually. However, many e-retailers across Europe and beyond, like ASOS, Zalando, Amazon as well, have become stricter in their returns policies now. Adding fees where previously returns were for free, or shortening the time window for returns, like Zalando did in Germany, Italy, and Netherlands, where now their threshold, the number of days for returns, is just as long as Amazon. Just they got rid of their USP in this respect here, and in the long term, this will probably lead to a lower rate of return and more thought through shopping baskets. Maybe less waste, and so on and so on. Then Amazon US recently announced that they will be phasing out the try before you buy program. Apparently because of AI feature adoption is reducing the need for this program. So I think it's two elements that are at play here. I think the main still is the cost. The cost for for the e-retailers to actually have a robust, a very generous, not only a very fair, but also generous returns policy, but also technology. It's really good that the technology is becoming better so that you buy exactly the piece of clothing you need for your particular body.
There's so much more we could talk about, but we've really only scratched the surface when it comes to this latest research that the IPC has published. Jakub, if people want to find out more, if they want to read more of this report or find out more about what the IPC does, where should they go?
Sure. They can go to ipc.be/shopper and public report. So the key highlights report is or download for free over there.
I'll stick a link to the IPC website on the episode page on thepostalhub.com. So if you haven't had a chance to tap that into your browser right now, you can look at the link later on. Jakub Rymkiewicz, Market Research Manager at the IPC. Thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thanks, Ian. Pleasure.
Coming soon on the Postal Hub podcast, the CEO of Venipack joins us to talk about delivery in the Baltics. Who else is joining us? Michael Anderson will be joining us to talk about the UK delivery scene and various other luminaries too numerous to mention. Not that they're too numerous to mention in reality. I could mention them, but they've got a limited amount of time before the music runs out at the end of the episode. So, let's get on with it, shall we? You know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, first of all, subscribe to my email newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter. Well, it's weekly when I release a podcast every week. I only send out the newsletter if I release a podcast. So some weeks you might not get one. Isn't that amazing? Or you can subscribe to the Daily Delivery Digest. Not that they're exclusive. You don't subscribe to one or the other. You can subscribe to both of them if you so desire. Go to thepostalhub.com, follow the links, sign up, follow me on LinkedIn, and if you want to email me about anything at all, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.